Okay, we're going to get started because we have a ton to get through today, and I want to make sure we have enough time to get through it and also answer some of your questions. So, if you're just joining, welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat and share your first job. Just a little quick icebreaker for everyone. If you didn't download the worksheet for today's session, it's also floating in the chat. It's also the same one from your email confirmation. So if you received it over email, it's the same thing, just for you to follow along and remember some of the frameworks that we talk about today. So welcome everyone to Should I Stay or Should I Go? Frameworks to make big career decisions. Um, my name is Myra. I'm the founder of the Leadership Lab, where we do leadership development training, corporate workshops, and career coaching. And this topic is very personal for me because I went through this whole process over the last year. My last job was at Amazon. I was at the Amazon for 10 and a half years. And I was deciding if I should leave to start the Leadership Lab. And here we are today, where I started. I left it earlier this year and started Leadership Lab, and haven't looked back. So, a very personal topic for me. I have lots to share about my own journey and some of the frameworks, but I wanted to share some of the questions that came up for me, some of my friends, some of my clients that I talked to today, leaders that I work with, and just throw a plus one if you've ever thought of any of these questions. Is the grass greener somewhere else? Should I stay in this mediocre situation? Is this even mediocre? I think I want to do something else, but I'm not sure what it is. Or I don't even have time to look for something else. How can I even think about leaving, even if I'm not happy, or just like something that you hate about your current situation? I mean, there's so many of these questions that I think we all think about when we are coming at a crossroads. And especially in this economy, it kind of feels like a luxury to think about this question, if you should stay or you should go. But if you're also unhappy, it feels like, insufferable, like you need to make a decision. So, um, if any of these resonate with you, this is what we're going to talk about today. And I think a big element of why these questions feel big and scary and hairy is that there's a lot of unknown in making some of these decisions. And if you're like me, you're ambitious, you want to make the best decision, you want to make sure that it's moving you forward in your career. And it means a lot more and it has a lot more pressure behind it. And so my whole philosophy is finding as many data points and as much clarity as possible so that you can feel good and confident about your decision. And so I want to share the frameworks that I used for making my decision, but also have helped other leaders use in their careers to help navigate their career paths. So what are we going to go through today? I'm going to just briefly touch on my career journey and share a little bit about my background for those of you who I haven't met yet. And then we'll jump right into the frameworks. I have several frameworks that I want to share with you today. I know all of us are at different journeys of answering this question. Like some of you might be really close to making a jump, and some of you might just have started thinking about it. And so I hope I'm going to share several frameworks with you today, but I hope at least one of them, if not more, resonate with you and help you think through where you're at in your decision process. Many of you submitted some Q&A, so awesome. I tried to incorporate all of that throughout the session, but hopefully we'll have time at the end. And if you do have a question, feel free to throw it in the chat, and I'll try to get to it where it's relevant. And then at the end, I'll share some more resources and next steps. So, first, I just want to share a little bit of my background and how I got to hosting this session. Some of you might know this from LinkedIn, but if I haven't met you yet, I started my career off at the Gap in retail. I was a merchandiser. In addition to being in the US, I also spent 2.5 years with the Gap, bringing the Gap brands to the China market, which was awesome experience. It's where I learned that I loved scrappy teams and kind of being in startup mode, building mode. And that is when I moved to Amazon after the Gap and very much got that experience in scrappy mode. And I loved the customer experience. So I ended up pivoting to content strategy and marketing. It's where I spent most of my career at Amazon in the grocery space. And I was also a manager. So I led teams. Many of you are familiar with Amazon's culture. I was very fascinated by how Amazon develops talent, how they hire, how they maintain that day one culture. And so I was didn't even realize that that was a possibility, but I followed that kind of passion into learning and development. And I pitched to start a learning and development team for the retail team that I was on in the grocery business. And it became a thing, it became a function, and I led that team for many years, and grew in learning and development space, which again, I didn't even know was a possibility coming from the retail and business side. And that is where I got way deeper into facilitating, teaching, training, and leadership development in general. So that's earlier this year. I was faced with this question myself, and I decided to leave Amazon and start my own business, the Leadership Lab. Here we are today. That whole story is a very linear story, super logical in hindsight, right? Like every step led to the next one. It makes sense. I can tell it pretty simple story, but actually it was this, right? Like it was very squiggly, it was very tumultuous. Like even the good parts about that story where I got promoted or I moved into L&D had really like scary or overwhelming elements. I was laid off twice. I had jobs that sucked that I just was like so bored in, even though I was busy, I was bored. I had two babies in between there that totally, set my career into a different path. And even in the times that I feel like I really was growing and loved my job, I was still thinking about what's next. So, um, I feel like there is not a playbook to making those decisions or navigating those decisions in your career. But what I have found with these frameworks is that there is a way to make it feel less overwhelming and to put some structure to all those thoughts in our head to help you make a more clear decision. So let's jump into it. Just a note, since there's so many of us, I did disable just coming off mute, but I do want you to feel free to throw plus ones in the chat, throw comments in the chat. And if you have any questions, go ahead and throw it in the chat. I am monitoring the chat on the side, so would love to hear your feedback and thoughts as we go through. Okay, so starting off with this framework, this overarching framework, is a really simple concept. You're going to be like, yeah, duh. But we're going to talk about the actual tactics to unlock each of these. But I believe that the right next move is where all of these things overlap, where you understand yourself and what you want, what you're good at, where you add value, where that overlaps with your priorities. Like, what are your non-negotiable things that you need to prioritize right now? And then obviously, like, what are the actual options that are out there? Where those three things overlap is the right next move. So, like, yeah, that kind of makes sense in theory, but how do you actually get to that? Let's jump into it. I'm going to share some of the questions. These questions are ones that I asked myself, but I also developed frameworks for, so we're going to talk about those. They're also the questions on your worksheet. So I thought the questions were helpful to kind of keep in mind because you can also answer them in your own way as well. So for the first step, understanding yourself, the questions that I really focused on here is my role aligned with what drives me and my strengths? What's my work roadmap for the next year? I cannot wait to tell you about this one. And what new things am I learning in this role? Then when it got to my priorities, I is that role aligned with my non-negotiable priorities? And then when understanding my options, is my leadership supportive of me? A lot of people, when you guys signed up for this, emailed me and said, like, how do I know if that's true? We're going to talk about that. What other info do I need to understand my options? Is this decision a two-way door? And what's the worst case scenario? And a lot of times with options, I feel like we make a lot of assumptions about what options there are or what opportunities are out there, but we're not fully diving into what are the actual tangible options. So we're going to talk about some foolproof ways to do that. So let's start with step one, understanding yourself. The objective here is understanding what you even want to do, like what drives you. We all, I think, are, either in the middle of our careers, senior careers, like we have experience working and we understand what we're good at, what we like, what we don't like. And so there's some data points to help us kind of drive our path, our decision making. And so there's two frameworks I want to share with you here. The first is called the love hate list. If you've been following me for a while, I'm like a broken record on this one because I feel like it's no matter what question you're trying to ask in your career, it's a helpful framework to kind of guide you on what to focus on. But it's a really simple exercise. You write down what you love about your current role and what you hate about it. What drives you, like anything, the people, the types of projects you're working on, the subject area, your manager, the leadership, the culture, anything. Things you love, things that drive you, and things that you dread. You have to do them. They're part of your job, but you dread working with that person, or you dread doing this one task, or working in a type of environment. And it's really clear what some of the themes are. And the second framework is your Wonder roadmap. So let me walk you through what I did. This is my love hate list. By the way, I have this worksheet. It's a nicer version of this on my website. I'll send you guys the link later. But you can just easily do it in your notes app or whatever. But this was right before I left Amazon. I did this, and I did do this exercise every quarter. Usually I used to do it before my like development conversations with my manager, but it's also helpful just to kind of make sure you're in line with whatever you want to do going forward. So some of my loves are really interesting. I liked starting things from scratch. I kind of already knew that. I liked being the owner and decision maker. I liked doing the strategy and the doing, which was really interesting for me to realize because as I grew at Amazon, I was just doing strategy. Like my team was doing the doing, but I liked doing the doing. I liked getting my hands dirty. And that was a real struggle for me in this role when I didn't have the opportunity to do that. I love facilitating group workshops. And I was at Amazon for 10 and a half years. I really liked being well known, like the go-to person. Hey, go ask Myra for that. So I really liked that about being there for a long time. I did not like executing someone else's vision. I was surprised that I didn't like managing a large team. I always thought I was good at managing large teams, but I realized I actually didn't like it. Like those were the things that that was draining me. And then being involved in so many different aspects of the business because my team had such a large purview, I didn't love that. So this was probably the first eye opener for me that was like, shoot, okay, the things that I love are not actually core to my job description. And that is where I was like, okay, I need to start thinking like, this is not going to be, uh, my long-term game. This is like something needs to change. And as I went through, I was like, okay, yeah, the none of the things about my current role were going to miraculously change into my loves. So something needed to change. Yeah. So then I did this, and this is probably my favorite, like low key, very simple exercise. But a lot of you have asked me, like, how do you know, let's say you do want to leave, how do you know what the right timing is? Like, you, I wrote about leaving a lot of money on the table because I left before my next vest. And this was the exercise that made me decide. I call it the 1 year roadmap. And probably you guys already have this at work. If you are like me at Amazon, we had like an OP1 roadmap or just a year roadmap. But I wrote out all the projects and deliverables that I had for the next year and like who I needed to work with on those, what needed to happen to get those done. And the visceral reaction when I looked at that and was like, okay, in April, I have this one project to complete. Like, oh my God, I cannot get through that. That is going to be so painful. Like, just thinking about that makes me want to run already. And there are maybe the opposite. You do it and you're like, wait, there's like a really cool thing launching that I want to be a part of. I want my name to that, or I want to work with that person. So you're going to get like some visceral reactions to seeing your roadmap for the next year. And the last thing I asked was like, are you going to learn anything new from those projects? And are they in service of your loves? My team had a lot of cool stuff coming up, but none of them were in service to my loves. Like, oh shoot, like I actually don't really like actually care about these things. They are objectively cool, but they're not what drives me. This was the turning point for me where I was like, okay, I need to make a decision before April because I cannot do this project with this team. I just couldn't. Like the thought of it just made me drained already, like having to work with them, having to influence these leaders, having to deliver on these really tough things. Like it just really made me think like it's not worth it. I know I have a vest coming up in May. I could stick it out then, but the dread of all of that work that I'd have to do for that April project was just like, it's not worth it. So this is how I came to the decision to leave, to make a decision. Not even, I didn't even know if I was going to leave yet, but to make a decision of changing roles before, my May vest, because I really wanted to, I just could not stay doing the same things with the same teams. Feel free to throw questions in the chat, but I just want to take a minute. If you have the worksheet in front of you, just take a minute to think about your upcoming year. Obviously, you're not going to have time to jot down everything that's coming up, but like, what immediate feeling does it evoke for you? And just jot down a couple of words on, what your vibe is, or something that maybe you want to remember to do when you get off this call. Um, but just as what came up for you as we were talking about the 1 year roadmap, and what it might mean for you. Oh, let me post the worksheet in here for you. It's up a little further in the chat, but I'll put it again in here. Hold on. Just think about something that just caught you when we're talking about those frameworks about understanding yourself. Okay, I'm going to keep moving just so we don't run out of time and I can get to questions. So, the next step is your priorities. This sounds very straightforward. However, I feel like we think a lot about our priorities and we say them out loud, but we are not specific enough about them. So this exercise gets to that. And the objective here is to understand what is non-negotiable in your life right now. So think about like financial, home, personal, career, family. Like, what are those main pillars in your life? What are your priorities for that? And let's marry your decision based on that. So I do a top three list. This is a very simple exercise, but the differentiator here is that you have to be super specific. Like, it's not enough to say a priority is to spend more time with my family. No. How does that come to life? What exactly do you mean? When are you spending time? What type of time are you spending? Is it after work? Is it on the weekends? Is it actually that you want less work and not less time? Like, what exactly do you mean? So, let me walk you through my priorities. I said I wanted to maintain financial security and maintain my current lifestyle, which required a very specific number, $120,000 net. So I also have a partner who's working still, so that was my minimum number to maintain my lifestyle. And I don't want to eat into my emergency fund. So this was about financial and like lifestyle. That means that I have a shorter runway to make it on my own. If I want to go start my own company, I have a lot less time to do that if I want to maintain my lifestyle, make $120,000 a year and not into my emergency fund for that. So that is a huge implication for my financials, right? For my decision making. The second one, I was originally saying work-life balance, and actually when I did it more specifically, this is what it meant, that I wanted to be home for dinner and I didn't want to work every night after bath. I don't mind going to the office as long as I could be home for dinner. That implication meant that Amazon RTO going in 5 days a week, I live an hour and 15 minutes away from the office, was not going to work for me. Like commuting every day, 3 days, fine. 5 days was going to be a lot for me to be home for dinner every night. And the work life balance of not working every night after bath was kind of unrealistic in my job. So that was kind of an eye opener for me of like, okay, if I actually want to be home for dinner, commuting 5 days is not going to work. That's like a fundamental deal breaker already. The last one was around my love list. I really wanted to pursue speaking and coaching outside of work. And if I could do that within my current job, that could be cool. But I knew that I wasn't going to have enough time or energy to do that in my current job because I was working so much. It also was a potential conflict of interest with my job since I was already in learning and development. And if I started a new job, I, at least initially, might not have time to pursue the speaking and coaching outside of work. So that was just a consideration of like, okay, I might have to give that up if I stay or if I find a new job. I might have to put that priority aside. Is that worth it? So these were my three. I want you to think about something really specific. So jot down just the first priority that comes to your mind. Maybe it's about you need to take care of your family member, or there's a financial thing, or a visa implication, or a home situation, or a work goal that you're really trying to get to. And just try to make it as tangible as possible. And if you really are gutsy, share it in the chat. What is the number one priority that came to your mind? And make it super specific. Anyone want to share it in the chat? Yes, that's a great one. Like you need to be continuously learning something every 6 months. I would even get more specific and say like what skill is there a specific skill that you want to try to lean into or a specific realm of skills so that you can kind of have more criteria of what hitting that would look like. I love that. Anyone else want to share in the chat? I know a big consideration for people, especially, if we're coming into more senior roles, is work-life balance. And so I would just get as specific as you can. One of my clients said, um, I want, they originally said, I want more time with my kids. And they actually, when we broke it down, they actually meant that they didn't want to have as many fire drills on the weekend because the company that they worked for was always pinging on the weekend, lots of urgent priorities on the weekend. And when we dug into it, it was actually they wanted a culture that respected time and wasn't firefighting all the time, that they were like more proactive, had more structure. And that was a big unlock for them because it was like, oh, it wasn't actually about like work-life balance. Like she doesn't need to be asking about the flexible work environment. It's more about the culture and how they prioritize time, how they work. So that was a big reframe for her. Yes, I love these in the chat. Needing to be present for my kids. I would just go even deeper. What does that mean to you? Does that mean that you can participate in school activities during the day, or does that mean that you can turn off work after 6 p.m.? Like be more specific for yourself so that you have some criteria to actually weigh it against. I love this, Terry, spending deep focus in designing a solution to a different problem. This is a very specific type of job to be in design mode or build mode. So I love that. More travel, Avishek, I would just get even more specific. What do you mean by more travel? Is that 2 trips a year? Is that more PTO days? Or is that work travel? Like, what do you mean? I love it. I love this, Dorothy. Very specific. Okay, great. You guys get it. I love it. As specific as you can be. How does this come to life for you? There's one thing we do in my workshop, which I'll share with you at the end, but if you put these priorities into ChatGPT, you can ask it, these are my top three priorities. How do I ask this in a PC way to a hiring manager? How do I vet this in a PC way? Because, obviously you're not asking like, what time do you guys get done work? Or like, like all of these like you're gonna ask them in more PC ways, but how do you investigate the culture of a new opportunity is the right one for you? I love these in the chat. You guys are in all, very similar considerations. And so just get really, really specific. I love it. Okay. The next one I want to spend some time on because I have several things to share with you here. And this is the last step. So, understanding your options. I think this step is probably the place where we all get a little bit stuck because we have some assumptions and it takes some work to understand your options. and it takes effort on our part. And so doing that is a little bit trickier than I think one and two, which kind of are just rely on us understanding ourselves. So how do you understand your options to get clearer on what your choices are and then determine which one is best? So there's four questions here that I like to ask. In your current role, is your leadership supportive of you? What other info do you need to understand your other options? Is the decision that you're eventually deciding between a two-way door? And what's the worst case scenario? So let's walk through each of these. There's three tactics that I like here: explicit questions to your manager and your skip level, coffee chats, no surprise. And then probably my favorite framework, which really changed my decision making process, was is the worst case scenario framework. So let's jump in. Um, so the first one, which is around having explicit conversations with your manager. So somebody submitted this one, which I loved. How can you tell if leadership is genuinely supportive of your career growth or just saying it without real follow through? And I don't think you can tell this unless you have an explicit conversation. Um, and the response you get from that explicit conversation is a data point. So let's just pretend your goal is to get promoted by Q3 2026. Um, these are the types of questions that I would ask my manager. Is this timing realistic? Like straight up, is this timing realistic? What needs to happen between now and then for this to happen? Are there any gaps? I would ask it both from my performance and from a circumstance perspective that would prevent me from achieving this. And what else do I need to be doing to achieve this? Like you have to have these very explicit conversations. Otherwise, you're not going to get the clarity you need. I would also ask the same questions of my skip level after I ask my manager these questions, just to make sure they're also on the same page. I had a client once whose manager was saying one thing about their promotion, very bullish on their promotion. And then they got to their skip level and they were like, so me and my manager were talking about this timeline. And the skip level was like, yeah, no way. Like, that's totally unrealistic. And that was a huge eye opener for my client. They were like, oh, well, if that's not even on the table, my skip level is the one who has to approve it. Like, what am I doing? So, having these explicit conversations, the kicker is that you may not like what they say, right? They may say, no, that timing is super unrealistic. It's going to be 2027 because of span of control, because you don't have enough direct reports, because of whatever circumstance that's out of your control. And in which case, you need to obviously take that. But I personally think that transparency is a form of support and realistic transparency is a better form of support and is a data point on, okay, at least I know my manager is being honest with me about what's next versus if you are getting the runaround or you're not getting super clear answers or you don't feel like it's honest. That to me is a data point of actually maybe this manager or this leadership is not actually supportive of me because they're not being honest about the circumstances. How do you ask for a recurring skip level meeting if it's not part of your team or company culture? This is a great question, Kelly. Um, so at Amazon, it was a part of the culture, and however, I would say if you have a career conversation with your manager, I would prepare how to ask them about it, or how to not even ask them, but tell them. Um, something like I said this to actually to my last manager when I wanted a skip level with our VP, who was like not really taking skip levels. Um, I said, I would love to get that VP's perspective or advice on my career because they have X, Y, and Z perspective or X, Y, and Z experience. And I kind of made it like part of my career development plan conversation. It was almost like I'm gonna go talk to them. So I wouldn't try to hide it as if if it's not, especially if it's not part of your culture, I would kind of be straight up that you want to have that and get your manager's perspective, or at least let them know that you're doing it. You could also, I think the executive assistants are like the best people to be friends with in an organization. You can ask them, do they do this? When are they free? Are they coming to the happy hour next Friday? Those are maybe more informal times that you could catch up with a leader that could seed a one-on-one conversation or an advice session. Um, yeah, I agree. Like you should definitely ask for it. Like don't beat around the bush. I would ask for it. And the worst case is they say no. I think it just matters how you ask for it, just to be like tactful and be that you want advice, you want perspective. I love the advice in the chat. Please share your tips if you have more. Um, and I would just, yeah, definitely figure out a deliberate way to get some time with them to get their perspective. Okay, the second thing is researching your options. And there's so many simple things when I talk to people and they're like, oh, there's no jobs out there. And I'm like, there are jobs out there, actually. Are you talking to the right people? Are you searching the right things? So there were three things that I did when I was researching my options. If I wanted to stay at Amazon, but obviously change roles, I knew I wanted to change roles. What else was out there? I had 10 coffee chats with different hiring teams and just friends outside my org. Not even people that were necessarily hiring, just to get perspective on like what else is out there, what other problems are people solving. If I wanted to go somewhere else, that was also an option on the table, is just leave to an external, another company. I simply just Google searched other jobs. I was on LinkedIn for looking at other jobs and just saw what was out there. I didn't apply to anything, but I saw that I was going to end up making less money generally. And I knew that I would have to start new, right? Like that's the implication if I wanted to go somewhere else. And then lastly, which was kind of big on my radar, was starting my own thing, which I had zero context over. This is probably where many of you found me because I posted about Ethan Evans, but I met with other people. I met up with Ethan Evans and got his advice. I don't know if you guys follow Roxy Cal. She's so funny, like the millennial manager. I messaged her and got her advice on things. And also just like friends of friends. Like I told my best friend and they set me up with somebody who just started their business leaving Facebook. So got different perspectives, and it was so helpful to hear what their experience was and just go in eyes wide open about what the possibilities are. So these are the three things. They're super simple, but you have to do them, right? You have to do them to understand what's out there. I actually, up until this point, was kind of leaning towards staying at Amazon in a new role because I had so much money vesting and I wasn't like so done with Amazon. And after those 10 coffee chats, none of those roles that were open were hitting my criteria of like my love list, my priorities. None of them were. And I was like, oh shoot, like, okay, like that really ended up, I thought it was a really easy option for me because obviously there's many roles to rotate into. And actually, that ended up not being a real option for me because none of them hit my yourself criteria. So that ended up being kind of a strikeout. I kind of wasn't really into going anywhere else, so I kind of knew that, but just knowing what that option was helpful. And then starting my own thing, like once I started to meet with other entrepreneurs, I was like, oh, okay, like maybe this is possible. Maybe it isn't as scary as I thought. Maybe I have more legs here than I thought. So hopefully that kind of gives you some answers to that, Abhishek. Okay, what? I'm going through the chat. Choose either high pay or bigger title. What's the better choice? That is a loaded question. I'm going to get to that in a second. And did you give yourself a timeline? How did you avoid decision analysis process? Yeah, I did give myself a timeline. And honestly, Abhishek, it was around when I did that roadmap exercise. I didn't have a timeline until I did that roadmap exercise. And I was like, I need to make like, I had fire under my ass after I did that exercise because I was like, I need to make a decision. So I had started this I had started about thinking about things in 2024, did not really do anything about it. I hit my 10 year in August, and that's when I was kind of like, okay, like I hit my 10 year, it's kind of a milestone. I should start thinking about this. And then we did our roadmap. Actually, we did OP2. If you guys are from Amazon, we did next year roadmap exercise. And that is when I kind of had an oh shit moment of like, okay, I need to make a decision. And I set a date for myself. So I set a date by Christmas, like by Christmas break, uh, I would make a decision. So I would definitely set a timeline. However, I would focus more on setting what I call micro timelines or micro actions of like, when am I gonna understand how hard it is to start my own thing? Like, when am I gonna go cold message Ethan Evans? Like, that should be your timeline, and that I think will give you more momentum on going one way or the other, or kind of investigating more, or you have enough information. Okay, I'm not forgetting this question about higher pay or bigger title. I think that really depends on your priorities. So I would go back to your three non-negotiables. Is your ego to have the bigger title better or more important to you than your higher pay? Or is your financial situation more critical to you? Like those are real trade-offs, but I think it really depends on your non-negotiables and what you are driven by. If you are driven by titles and progression, that's a real thing. I'm not negating that. I think those are real things. If you're driven by that, that is an important thing to weigh. That may be more important than money, right? So I would I would really go back to your top three non-negotiables and your love list and see like what is that telling me? Yeah, micro actions, like we'll keep going, but I want to talk about micro actions. Many of you, so I mentioned Ethan Evans. A lot of you pinged me and said, "Oh, what did you message him?" So I wanted to share just like my super simple cold message framework. It has really worked for me, and it's like so basic. So you start with something personal or specific to connect on. You have a simple and genuine ask, and you make it really easy to respond. And so the one on the left is what I wrote to Ethan, and I didn't even have LinkedIn Premium, so I had like 150 character limit, like whatever the character limit was in LinkedIn. So I was like trying to fit in something personal, an ask. But he had posted something about learning and development in corporations, and I was like, "Oh, here's my in." I had been meaning to respond to him, but or like to engage with him, and I just hadn't reached out to him. I don't know why. I just like didn't. And then he wrote about L&D, and I was like, I'm in L&D in a corporation, and we worked at Amazon around the same time. Like, this is my chance. So I messaged him right after he posted that. I commented, and then I messaged him that. And it's not revolutionary, right? Like, I founded this L&D team. It was about what he was talking about in his post. And I said, I would love to share my experience and pick your brain. And he wrote me immediately right after that and was like, oh, yeah, I just wrote about this. I'm really looking into this thing. He had a reason why he wanted to talk to L&D people. And then we took things on email and figured out a time to meet for coffee. But really simple. I did that same thing with Roxy. I was like, I loved your post about X, Y, and Z. This is why it resonated with me. I'm thinking about starting my own thing. I would love to pick your brain on it. And she wrote me back the next day and was like, here, are you free tomorrow? And I was like, oh, shoot, okay. So really, really simple things. If you haven't spoken to someone, this is one that I just sent the other day to one of my mentors at who I worked with at Macy's. Just like literally like was thinking about you. Do you have time to catch up? Somebody did ask me, do you have any tips to share if you're an introvert or less confident person? And my biggest tip, this is for anybody, is start with your existing network. Start with people you already know. And your intent should not be, oh, I need a referral or oh, I need a job recommendation or I need something. It should be, I want to connect and catch up with you. That should be your intent. And you're not bothering them. Think about when you get reached out to, by somebody who's like, oh, I want to catch up and talk about marketing, or I want to catch up and talk about family. You're like, absolutely. So totally just start with your existing network. People who are getting jobs today are getting them from their network. People are sending you jobs if they know you. So start with people you know, start with your friends, start with your former coworkers, your mentors, your former managers, and then you're going to get some momentum to keep going. That's like the micro action to the macro. Like you start with somebody simple, your best friend that's a coworker, and then you start telling them and you start to get more comfortable talking about it. And then they suggest to talk to this person. So it's all a snowball once you start. So my first tip is to just start. Okay, I'm missing some questions in the chat. Do you recommend sharing Calendly? Okay. I personally do not like to immediately send a Calendly link for the first reach out. because a lot of people, like, it's kind of like, oh, a business thing. And also, if I'm asking you for time, the onus should be on me to schedule the time, not on that person. So I generally do not send a Calendly link if I'm asking for something. And then if they say yes, then I will share my availability and I will schedule the meeting. I won't put it on them to schedule it. So I think if somebody reaches out to you for a chat, you can absolutely send your Calendly link to them and say, hey, grab a time on my calendar. But if you are asking for a chat, I would not send it. I would not send it. I would ask for their availability. Yeah, exactly, Vijay. Okay, let me go back up and see what I missed up here. Okay, Vijay, you have a very specific situation. This again depends on what drives you. What are your motivating factors? What are your top priorities? I think if you told me I love building cool tech, that I get such a rush out of that. That's what I love doing. Then I would say, absolutely, go do the go do that one, no brainer. But if you're like, I can't pay my mortgage, I'm like, sorry, you got to make some money before you get the cool job. Go find some money first. So I think it really depends on your priority list. Okay, Rebecca, I totally hear you on different industries. I think that's very true that a lot of this is kind of specific to corporate environments. Maybe not all of it, like the networking stuff, but yeah, the circumstances. So if you are in a non-corporate environment, please throw your info in the chat so that you can connect with Rebecca. Okay, I love that by writing the question, you got your own clarity. See, a lot of times it's just literally getting things out into paper, articulating them to other people to get some perspective. I love it. Okay, thanks, Ashita, for writing your perspective. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So we have 15 minutes. Okay. The last framework, which I love, is called the worst case scenario. And this is the framework that made me decide I'm going to leave and start my own company. Okay, so this are six very simple questions, but it's basically you write out, like, pick one of the options that you have right now, and you write out like what is literally the worst case scenario, like rock bottom, what's gonna happen. So if I started my own thing, first I said, is this a two-way door decision? Yes. So for those of you who don't aren't familiar with two-way doors, it's like, can you go back through the door? If you make the decision, can you reverse it? Can you go back? Can you change it? Or is it a one-way door where you're going to close that door? That is not an option anymore. If you walk through the door, you cannot go back. Most career decisions are two-way doors. Some are not, though. If you are going to burn a bridge by making this decision, if you are going to specialize in something super specific and spend time and money on that, that might be more of a one-way door decision. If something drastic is going to happen, like um, maybe you're going to lose your visa because of it, that might be a one-way door decision. So there are some one-way door decisions, but many things are two-way doors. So in my case, if I started my own thing, is my decision a two-way door? Yes. I could pivot and go back to work. Simple as that. I could if I had to. Next question is, what is the worst case outcome? Well, in my situation, it would be that I started my company and I made literally nothing, or even negative because I spent money on it. How long could I sustain that? So here's where you need to do some like financials, budgeting and stuff. But for me, I had 18 months of runway where I could eat into my savings, not that emergency fund, but my savings, to sustain that and try to make some money. What would you do if the worst case happened? So if I literally made no money, I would have to go back to work. I would have to find a job. what resources do you already have to do that, to find that job? Well, you could write many more here, but my first one was Amazon. Like if I had to, I could go back to Amazon. I could tap my old mentors, my managers, and try to find a job at Amazon. I also now have some recruiting contacts, so okay, maybe I could tap into them as well. Then once I did that, I was like, oh, my worst case is going back to work. Like I really liked I really liked working. I really liked working at Amazon. I relatively liked working there. I liked my job. I just want to do this more. So that is really actually not that bad. Like at a 0 to 10 scale, like when I realized that my worst case was going back to work, I was like, oh, actually that's like a good case. That's not that bad. So doing this exercise was like, wow, I have some risk, yes, but if the worst case happens, it's really not that big of a deal. And it made me realize that it was a two-way door, like it was recoverable and it could be a stepping stone. It just like, a chapter of my career path that, works or doesn't work. So this was a huge eye opener for me, was the worst case scenario. My recommendation to you is go specific and go deep, like the financial portion, like what's it, go to the rock bottom, like what is going to happen, how long is it going to take for you to not be able to pay your mortgage or not pay rent, like what, like go to the bottom so you really have the true picture of what your worst case scenario is and can make a better decision based on that. Maybe the risk is too much, and when you see it on paper you're like, fuck, I am not going to be able to do that, that's not going to happen, not right now at least. Or maybe you see it and you're gonna be like, oh, okay, it's not as bad as I thought. Cool. It's like bigger in my head than it is on paper. Okay, what's in the chat? Okay. Okay, there was a question. A lot of people actually asked me this question. A lot of you are thinking about starting your own business. How do you know if your idea is good or not, or if it's just a hobby? Did you decide, like, did you make money before you left? So a mentor of mine shared this framework with me and I loved it. And this kind of my personal uh, take on starting a new idea. Whatever you start should be your strength, it should be your passion, and it should add value to the world. So I really dislike when people say, follow your passions, follow your dreams. No, don't do that if you're not good at it and if you can't make money off of it. So your strength, what are you good at? What do other people think you're good at? For me, I was good at coaching, developing teams. I was a self-starter. This is all feedback that I received, and I knew that I was good at those things. What are you passionate about personally? What could you do all day without getting sick of it? I love training. I love facilitating. I love being in group settings, and I really liked helping other people find their path. Even when I was at Amazon, I loved that. Okay, but value, like, do others value this? Do they need it? How can I figure out if people value it? I did, again, it goes back to those options. Like talking to Ethan Evans gave me an idea of like how many clients does he have? Does he have a waiting list? What's the need? Where is the need? Talking to my friends personally, to this last question, like what can you do now to understand more about your idea? I um, got a lot of value from posting on LinkedIn and understanding where people's heads were at. And this goes to this last question. What if the current role is too demanding on time to figure it all out? I totally feel you on this. I always said, like when I was at Amazon, I don't have enough time to explore this leadership lab idea. Um, and my husband once, he's like, oh, like, don't you spend like an hour and a half on the bus each way to work? And I was like, that's my me time. Like, God, I don't have a break. I just want to listen to podcasts. I just want to listen to music and like totally decompress. And he was like, okay, it's like a lot of time, 3 hours though a day. And I was like, he's right. So I had a rule on the way into work before we got to the Lincoln Tunnel. I live in New Jersey. I worked in the city. Before I got to the Lincoln Tunnel, I would post something on LinkedIn. I did it like once every other week. And people started reacting to it. People started sharing their experiences. People were following me all of a sudden. I was like, what? What's happening? Like, okay, and so that's how I got some momentum and decided like, oh, there's some, white space here. People want to hear about this. And that I found pockets of time. I deprioritize something. I, and once you have, again, have that momentum, you want to do more of it. I want to spend more than the Lincoln Tunnel doing this. And you get some momentum and then you will prioritize it. The other thing I'll say, sometimes, pockets of time is not enough if you're like looking for a full-time new job. So unfortunately, I think I recommend you do have to take some time off. You have to take PTO, you have to take a Friday off. You have to take, a lot of people are taking leave of absences right now to prioritize themselves and figure out what's right for them. So if you can't find pockets of time on your own schedule, I would recommend taking some time off and dedicating the time. But I think dedicating the time is the right thing to do because you need to be in the mind space to, answer some of these questions and think deeply about it. Okay, let's see. Any questions? We have just a couple of minutes. If you have a question, feel free to throw it in the chat. There's some good chatter happening. Okay, feel free to throw it in the chat. I do want to tell you a couple of things. Speaking of if you don't have enough time to do anything, that is literally kind of one of the pieces of fundamental elements of the Leadership Lab is built for busy people who don't have time. Because as you know, change, learning, any of that stuff takes time and effort. So a lot of my sessions and workshops, they're as practical as possible and um, in the least amount of time that it could be to be effective. So, what's coming up? I have a career clarity workshop. The next one is on Friday, September 12th. I host them every other month. It's a 2 hour session. We go through a lot of the exercises that we did today. We do them together. We do a few other ones that are really eye-opening. And it's a small group. It has 100% satisfaction rate. 100% of people say it was worth the money and some really, really eye-opening aha moments in this session. But basically, you do the work in the session. So you get the clarity in the session, and we leave with action plans. So you leave with those micro actions that I was talking about. So if you're interested and you still feel like you need a kick under your butt or something, a fire under your ass to do these things, join us for the Career Clarity Workshop. If there's a lot of interest, I might add another one the next week. I think it starts 11 a.m. EST, if I'm not mistaken. And then if there's more appetite, I will add an evening option Eastern the next following week. Um, if you're like, no, no, thank you, I don't want to join a group to do that work, I also sell the workbook. It has a few of the exercises from this workshop, plus some more exercises that I think are really helpful in exploring kind of yourself and what's next. That's for sale on my website. And then I offer free one-on-one consultations. Many of you have already taken me up on that. Please feel free to put time on my calendar. There's a link to book that and follow me on social. If you use that QR code, I'm also going to pop the link in here for you guys. Um, I really appreciate your feedback. There's a link at the top of that website for feedback, and I would love, love, love to hear you. Before we leave, and I'm going to get to your question, Vijay. I do want to challenge you though, before you sign off from this session, because you have dedicated your hour to this session. What is one micro action that you can take after this to getting closer to your next step? It could be reaching out to that person you thought. It could be you were thinking about. It could be scheduling a one-on-one with me. It could be writing down your love-hate list, like one small thing, but just write one action that you're going to take by next week. Okay, by next week, what are you going to do? And put a date on it. And I really want that to be your catalyst to kind of getting some momentum to making your own decision. Yes, brush up that CV. I have some free resume tips on my website. Okay, last thing I'll leave with. If there's any more questions, I'll stick around. But thank you guys so much for joining. And I hope to see you. I'm going to email the recording and all the resources that I mentioned today in the email. But I will stick around for a few questions. Okay, Vijay says, "What's your recommendation on staying positive in this gloomy job environment?" Oh yeah, I this is why I love the concept of micro action because it's very easy to get jaded in this environment and lose confidence. So anything you can do to keep your momentum, super small actions. What can you do today? What can you do tomorrow? And personally, I think utilizing your network, keeping your, even if you're not even looking yet, just always connecting with people and staying top of mind for people, just catching up with people you know is my number one recommendation in staying positive. A lot of people are finding jobs. They are not cold applying to jobs, though. They are finding jobs through a referral, through a friend, through a network. Somebody thought of them. And so I would keep networking and keep networking with people you know. It is definitely not easy with the golden handcuffs, but a lot of people are getting, there are jobs, even the layoffs that just happened, Microsoft and Amazon, there are still thousands of job openings on the other side of it. So it's really challenging, but you have to keep networking. Post on LinkedIn. Oh, you could do it. Do it, do it, do it. I love it. I love these actions. Thanks for sharing your actions. If you have another question, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, so great to be with you guys. Thank you for coming. And would love to see you in an upcoming session or a one-on-one. Yeah, Kelly, I don't recommend adding the open to work banner. I don't think it hurts, but I think more importantly, commenting on other people's posts to be kind of out there in the LinkedIn world. If you're so bold to post yourself, I think that's worth it. Like set a goal, maybe once a month you post something interesting. And then I like to send it, instead of doing the open to work banner, I would send an email to my entire network saying, whoever you feel comfortable with, like saying, I'm looking for work. I don't need, the only thing I ask is that if you see something that looks interesting following this criteria, please send me the link. And you'll be surprised with who reaches out to you. But I don't think it hurts, but I don't think it helps. So instead, I would engage on LinkedIn in the comments and post yourself. I think that would be more helpful. Any other questions? If you've stuck around, feel free to pop a question. Otherwise, so good to see you guys. Thank you. Feel free to drop whenever you're ready. Great to see you guys. Thanks. Look forward to your feedback on the survey. I'm going to send it out after this. Oh, good. I'm so glad it was helpful. I hope you guys make some confident, good decisions now. There will definitely be a replay. I will be uploading it right after this and send it later today. Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna log out of the Zoom. So for anyone who's still here, great to see you. Hope to see you at an upcoming session. Bye.